Finally, I've soared far through the stars to the world's biggest puzzle hunt series and can see half my teammates for the very first time. I've prepped myself for cold weather and worked the cost in travel, lodging, and food to total about $700. I'm ready for... Whoa! Looks like I'm falling into Top 20 Puzzles I Did in MIT Mystery Hunt 2024! Looks like I found myself in another dimension, along with some teammates. But the hunt site went down for quite a while. Still, I can finally start associating names with faces with a supply of badges given out, which we later discovered to be our very first puzzle we worked on and 20th place pick. It didn't take long to get parts of phrases put in all sorts of encoding schemes. After the hunt site started running again, we came across a staff member with a badge to complete the instruction. Then I got my first experience of navigating the massive MIT building as part of a puzzle, and it wouldn't be my last. We stumbled upon some posters which looked like ordinary student events, until we read the fine print of the posters being by the MIT Puzzle Club. Puzzles in disguise are so cool, and these posters became super relevant to getting 8 phrases, 1 per poster. Still, we needed to get a final answer phrase, and it took a while to sound them together to get a clue phrase for that. Now, where am I really? We've encountered a throne room home to 3 really good boys. We then made our way through the courts and came across the Rivers of the Dead. Yup, this alternate dimension is based on the Greek underworld. It's not a place of life as I look elsewhere for a future one, so we need to get out of there. Time to escape from the underworld in my 19th place pick and run around where we navigate the basement floor of MIT. Orpheus guides us in one of the jankiest college tours ever, but the main highlight is the frantic hiding via the Omicron protocol. Although my teammates did much of the puzzle aspects as my phone battery was running low, I still had a great time exploring alongside fellow teammates and got to see how MIT is effectively a maze firsthand. We eventually found our way back into the overworld, but then Hermes came along to tell us some bad news.
So congratulations on dooming the universe!
You see, Persephone got so upset that scientists like Michael Brown ousted Pluto as a planet, effectively murdering Pluto in her eyes, a feeling I'm oh so familiar with. She sent the hunters to the underworld, and she really wants Hades restored or else reality would distort. This restoration involved getting the shades of Hades that showcase the many aspects of Pluto for the world to make up for that. These shades are scattered all over the United States, but Hermes can help with fast travel via the Mercury. Isn't it just a Percy Jackson novel at this point? That Mercury takes us to so many places and puzzles, including major sites like the island of Oahu and the unincorporated area of Hell, Michigan. Of the puzzles there, it's a 4-way tie for 18th place among puzzles I did, and arguably a 7-way tie as well. I first took a look at Akari and one-shot the logic with the autosolver and knocked out solutions, and got an instruction on reaction 10. This definitely had something to do with chemistry. I later worked on the fairly straightforward crossword and got another message pertaining to chemistry. I also took a look at word search, but the unused letters form multiple different messages used for multiple places. Many of these puzzles are easier to take on than other puzzles in the overworld by themselves, but as it turns out, every possible pair of puzzles can combine information to get all the feeder answers. Hence the 7-way tie and a total of 21 feeder answers, all used together for the meta puzzle riff that teammates worked on while I got some rest. But there's more to puzzle hunting than the mechanics. One of the biggest appeals to puzzle hunting is the sheer number of topics covered. So much that Joseph De Vicentis made an entire index of every topic that made its way into a mystery hunt puzzle, which itself has been turned into a puzzle with my 17th place pick of Circus Circus. Though it did took us a while to realize this is what the Venn diagrams are all about, and I won't be surprised if the topic numbering becomes out of date soon. Once we found that out alongside Ring M, I got to work with the data collection and organization, identifying from the list of puzzles and categories like Greek mythology, this year's theme. Teammates later identified the ABC ordering to identify that Ring F is about the puzzle authors, who we later identified as well. I see what they did with Dan Katz. As for the actual topics, the mix of topics and mechanics lends themselves to intricate setups, but the simpler ones, sometimes used in those fish puzzles, show up in the hole in the ceiling of Hades. While some are simple enough to be one-shotted by a teammate, there are 50 feeder puzzles there. These gradually get time unlocked, giving me new things to look at should I get too stuck. One example is Show of Hands, my 16th place pick. These strings look like gibberish at first, but I'm able to pick out sets like 3-letter trees and sequences like Roman numerals to continue the trend. After getting enough of them, I'm able to see that these can form phrases with hands. But as I still need to get a final answer phrase, I thought about picking a letter right by the hand, which somehow worked. Getting much of it on my own is generally satisfying, but on a team, I can explore many more cool and complicated ideas than what I can do on my own, like my 15th place pick of Rebus. It starts off as a standard crossword, but my teammates found that some answers can get inputted in peculiar ways. In the first grid, some squares get multiple letters, and one square has a digit 4 for the answer to 3 down. This is because one across is a rebus, the 4 in language for foreign language. Even if I didn't find them, seeing the ahas throughout the grid can be fairly satisfying. Now back at the overworld, I've taken on a regional math league before in Las Vegas, but this time we're searching for Pluto's Shades of Wealth in the Strip. There are so many casinos, each with their own puzzles, like the Lexico's Delight of Mandalay Bay, my 14th place pick. It's a good thing we don't spend money on this slot machine, as we need a lot of spins to find out what combination results in losses, wins, and jackpots. After all, this lexical delight really substitutes letters with symbols and calculates the Scrabble score, making the high scoring ones a good place to start searching. Since casinos are known for rigging odds, we also need to identify the odds of each emoji to identify the jackpot answer word. But my favorite puzzle of the city lands in 13th place at Haraz, and there's a lot to identify in the collection of images. There's actors for pirate media and numbers for indices, and then a teammate found that the scene and imagery is based on things pirates don't do. As in the VeggieTales song, The Pirates Who Don't Do Anything, which is my first time hearing it despite church experience. But when identification becomes more difficult, it's a good thing the original ordering is on the release date of the pirate media, allowing us to narrow the search. We didn't get all the letters, but we still got enough to search a final answer phrase via a new dramatic finish. On to another area! Yellowstone is home to a lot of natural wonders I visited like Old Faithful, but it's also where Medusa makes her lair in my 12th place pick. But in order to peer into what's going on, we need the feeder answers of the round. After all, in the original Greek myth, direct gazes to Medusa turn people to stone, so Percy made use of mirrors for a safe view. The backslashes of our feeder answers can serve as said mirrors, and the feeders snaking around allow us to figure out where the mirrors are. But finding what to do with what Percy saw was a bit tricky, especially without all the feeders. Still, it was satisfying to observe that some sight paths match up with the length of what Percy saw, allowing us to get just enough landers for the fill-it-in finisher Nutramatic. Adding on to the memories, our quest to reassemble the Shades of Haze is also a 3-day race to the finish. After all, the MIT Mystery Hunt is a large puzzle hunt competition that lets me revisit the feelings of past competitions that I'm too old to participate. Some of them even become puzzle topics themselves. On the math side, I counted a lot of tests in the league and got far in the AMC and AIME. But those doing super well go further into the national team selection test for the International Math Olympiad, where 99% of Mystery Hunt teams cannot solve this. We definitely have the art of problem solving it in identifying the IMO right off the bat with its problems and letters, as well as a teammate who actually took that test helping out with a trickier extraction, resulting in the country acronyms. Each country sends its 6 reps, and the scores per problem make for a Braille extraction. On the spelling side, I did the buzz-off from scripts where the last kid standing wins, but you may have also seen the New York Times version on spelling words from a group of 7 letters. We handled both of them in befouled spellings, as my teammates plowed through the archives to find the grids and winning words. But getting the extraction in order was tricky! I arrived a bit later, but noticed that a lot of words share a letter. As it turns out, the New York Times game required all spelled words to use that very letter, and these letters spell out answers to another clue. Now we get an ordering. When deciding between the two, it all comes down to which of them was more involved. The math competitions gave me a lot of flashbacks, but I'm putting the math puzzle at 11th place as the center letter mechanic of the spelling puzzle was incredibly clever, putting this scripting in the top 10. Alright, we're halfway through the list, but with Persephone seeking to make up for what Pluto lost before things get distorted, there's still a lot more puzzles to go through. Next stop is Olympic Park. But before we figure out Gaia's star watching, we first learn about our work from a puzzle superstar with the Enneagram, my 9th place pick. But rather than a personality classification, we got a series of bite-sized puzzles that make ample opportunity for divide and conquer strategy with some clever mechanics. I thought Clue 3 and Clue 29 were pretty neat, but I didn't realize that the premise of Clue 36 was basically how HAL Laboratory got its name. But there's a lot more going on than the 81 appetizers we took on, as we still need to extract a final answer. For one, turns out the traditional Enneagram is still relevant, as each group of 9 has one answer with an Enneagram trait, which has a canonical numbering that's definitely useful for ordering. Reading the first letters of each group of 9 clue answers spell out another wordplay clue, this time for a number. One idea was puzzle numbers, but some of them are just too large. And the congratulations message even tells us to look elsewhere. After all, Enneagram is specifically a homage to Octogram, a puzzle game made by the late Jack Lance. These numbers we got were actually puzzle numbers from the Octogram, and the first letters of those clues spell another wacky wordplay puzzle for the final answer, which took a while to get. How about another short one? The mechanics of wordplay need not require words, as that's the main draw to the emoji crossword puzzle at 8th place. I've done an emoji crossword before, but this time the clue answers are done in emoji. One of my favorite clues is 6 down, primarily because of the Mario reference. But the emoji play can become really clever when the emojis for the across answers need not have the same definition as the down answers. Good thing the emoji bank is there for us to check our work. When I did an initial count, there are 42 emojis, which is 7 short of the number of squares. That helped us figure out that some clue answers also incorporate English letters, which naturally spell the puzzle answer. Hopping on over to yet another area. We're making a splash at Sedona, Arizona, but when the spa gets so relaxing and becomes sleepy, we really need to look before we leap. Especially my 7th place puzzle, lest something be there, or gone, when we land. The taxonomy label helped us see that these strings can have missing letters inserted to spell species of frogs and toads. These same letters can also be placed in the grid below, but when van and log start to pop up, we were in for a Frogger puzzle. Makes sense with the title, as a frog needs to hop from the bottom to the top without becoming roadkill. Good thing we're working with a standstill, as we got a path of letters for extraction. But our new dramatic queries were thrown for a loop, as one of the questions surprised us with a full word answer rather than a letter. Time to hop on over to another room. With so many puzzles done on a computer, it's sometimes nice to go off screen in this marathon of a hunt. There's plenty of puzzles that work with physical objects or take us to locales, but one puzzle does both. My 6th place pick of game to be themed later. While I'm out working on other puzzles, my teammates got 5 pinball overlays with a lot of holes. They identify the tiles and the secret layer ordering, spelling out a message to play a mean pinball. That meant visiting HQ, and I wanted to join in. And we got to play with a custom-made pinball game just for this hunt, the first one I played in a long time. As my teammates did much of the puzzle work, I focused more on the pinball part. My favorite play was hitting the ball so hard it flew out of the playing field and into the back. No doubt some janky gameplay, but I still had a lot of fun playing with teammates. Along with all those other memories. As we're working our way through the shades of the states, suddenly a new round unlocks as we're wondering just how much we still have to go. This labyrinth of puzzles involves the entire state of Texas, and my favorite puzzle and 5th place overall is a trip down memory lane. After all, when the later puzzles start to get incredibly hard and monstrous, I often go for puzzles that have manageable hearts, which those fish mini puzzles certainly have in spades. The first thing I saw was fish in titles, but when that spells out a red herring, it's time to look elsewhere as teammates spotted the mnemonics and the odd word out leading to a message. Then Tunnel Vision and Gridlock had manageable crosswords and Ken respectively, and Mind Games has some quick and easy pattern finding. Red Letter was a bit trickier because that first list looks like chemistry symbols. However, a teammate suspected that this looked like Bible books instead, and seeing the tiny 2 near the SA got me super convinced. Now there's a puzzle with Christianity that I have actual experience, but which translation should I use? Well, Alex Mercer gave hints to look at the classic King James Version, and now it's a matter of pulling up the good old Bible Gateway to get words from the verses for teammates to read first letters. Now all those mini puzzles gave us a submission task, like visiting HQ while dressed as a priest. My teammate got makeshift Prey Scare, but having an InterVarsity track and first period 2-9 applicable gave me a good excuse to tag along. But even with the tasks done, there's still quite a lot involved. New answer checkers gave us new answers per mini puzzle, which match up with each character and gave us 2 common eigenletters before a final transformation. Quite a lot going on down that memory lane. Just like with all that grid logic. After all, grid logic puzzles are a staple in the puzzle hunting world, and many of them require quite the assembly. But my favorite and 4th place overall goes all the way back to the Roman underworld Kakaro. Normally, Kakaro logic puzzles involve placing the 0 to 9 digits so that the sums match what is described in rows and columns. But this time, Roman numerals are in play, and these use more than one character. Fortunately, the examples help us become more confident on the rule set and extraction. We're multiplying the Roman numerals with all factors on most 39, and the first wrong entry implies there's no repeat factors, kinda like the original. So it's all a matter of filling the grid, but that's easier said than done, even with at least 3 hands on different parts. My strategy involved writing out the prime factorization of each target number to see what factors are even possible. Sometimes I can narrow it down, but I still have to determine the ordering of factors. In some cases, I can get lucky and have one square be predetermined, which gives extra constraints. But there's quite a lot of trial and error and multiple times where I had to erase. At least until a teammate presented us with a complete grid and extracted message. But getting to the final answer from that was hard. What we had to do was take those gibberish strings, convert A1Z26 in Roman numerals, and reparse them so that the A1Z26 spells out something that makes more sense. Now it all comes down to this. The hole in the ceiling of Hades has a lot of puzzles, but our attention went over that world to the other puzzles that felt more relevant in making progress. Until there's another shade to be found there as we're nuking puzzles with free answers. Then we're face to face with the myriad gamut of Hera, my 3rd place pick and favorite from the underworld. But before Hera can give us Pluto's scepter, we need to deal with the letters on Zeus's desk, especially since past hunts involve prodigious riddles and pernicious revenge. However, since this is a meta puzzle, we have to work with 50 feeder answers from that round. The description gave us 5 transformation types between the feeders, and thanks to the free answers, my teammates were able to find all the links. But we still need to get the final answer from that. Even with the hints, it is hard to find a sense of direction. I only started to get involved when teammates suspected associations with Greek letters at the end. And with further inspection, that connection was the way to go. The first word of the chain has a Greek prefix for a number, and the last word of the chain can be associated with a Greek letter. Now I have something to check off in order as I help finish the final meta puzzle that I worked on. But there's one more puzzle with meta work. You may have noticed that many metas gave us some diagram to work with. These metas are known as shell metas. Other metas are pure metas that gave us nothing but flavor text, but this runner-up puzzle with diagramless metas are actually filled with shell metas. After all, we quickly found that this hermit crab makes use of shells from past puzzles of the MIT Mystery Hunt, kinda like real-life hermit crabs. But as we're off to some past hunts, we soon realize that these meta shells are repurposed as another crab's treasure, in that the mechanics are used differently than the original counterparts. That threw some of us for a loop, as we have to figure out how else to use the shells. For example, while Bookspace's battery pack naturally had feeders placed crossword style, the hermit crab treated it as a drop quote, which is quite hidden without the letters in alphabetical order like in most drop quotes. The random haul from the Perpendicular Institute of the World still used distributions, but only to narrow the indices that the hermit crab could have used. Finding these alternate uses are quite tricky, but a big highlight was getting something from the Mega Man round with Craftsman and the dice rolls. One of the few ideas I had was using Monopoly because of the go to jail, but my teammates found that that was a good idea because the rolls can associate a feeder with a Monopoly property, and there just so happened to be matching eigenletters. We eventually got a lot of 10-letter mini-meta answers, but we still need one more meta shell at Sharon's Rivers of the Dead. Back at the Underworld, we identified the Rivers of the Dead and read downstream, but our mini-meta answers tell us to go the opposite bank and read upstream. Managing these meaty metas was quite the accomplishment with how much was going on. Before my top picks, some honorable mentions. But this year's Mystery Hunt is by far one of the longest. There's no way I can cover every special story from the 200 plus puzzles. So comment below your favorite moments. As for me, corporate change. You can thank Elon for this. Do you like Wordle? Took a while to get through them all. 2 outs, 2 strikes, and I see what they did with the premise. Cubo. This 3D crossword brings in the states of Brazil. Green Logic. One of the trickiest math Einstein logic puzzles I have attempted. A routine cryptic. Somehow was on the lead with a tithe clue, but didn't expect baseball positions to also be cryptic clues. The Strat. The biggest what moment when we saw that one crab with 6 legs is a king crab. Hydra. So many overthinking heads. Augmented reality. Combining video games with transit maps. Modern architecture. Chemistry was easy and rest has some navigation. Sorry not sorry. No, really. This is a puzzle about YouTube apology videos, and yes, it includes that ukulele one. Island hopping. My teammate and I were able to get super far on this massive Nurikabe. Jigsaw slithering. Love the concept of fractal slithering. And finally, the Hercules task submission. Herc can be hired to help out for many more labors, but we need to do some ourselves in order to hire him. These challenges can have quite the variety, and one task that I had a good shot at was Midas Touch. While I may not have much physical golden things that aren't usually golden, I can Pokemon Go through my shinies, many of which are golden. And finally, my personal favorite. One of the best parts of flying into the MIT Mystery Hunt is those challenging puzzles bringing together hunters from all over to explore so many places. This even extends internationally, especially with another competition throwback with my personal favorite, the 45-step geographic itinerary starting at Najaf. With a few quick searches, our next stops are Baghdad and Ankara, but now we need disambiguation based on the 6 flights, and we're able to figure out most of the flight conditions. Buzz Air requires stops with neighboring repeats, and Jet Gold only stops at Olympic host cities like Paris. On our current airline of Al Alpha, the stops only have A's as a vowel, so our next stop is Atlanta and not Tbilisi for the capital of Georgia. But then we need a city with its name first engraved on the Stanley Cup in 2004. Tampa won the cup, but the flight labeling doesn't make sense and led us to a dead end. We skipped ahead to find cities that are easier to identify, but the Beta Airlines gave us trouble as our search for Beta cities did not include some cities. We also found a message from the first letters of the clues. Sort destinations alphabetically, read nth clue word. As we gathered more cities, we used the sorting to find cities that the next clue phrase makes sense. Then I found from the Beta Airline cities that this airline served cities with a Greek letter substring, supported by Del Taco and Pepsi. And with most of the cities identified, we found that the luggage goes to another city that has the same airline remain used. This explains the Tampa mix-up, as we instead went to St. Louis, which was also on the cup, albeit as a player. Now that's a clever disguise. This massive itinerary was incredibly challenging with so much hidden details, and getting through it as a team was one of the big highlights. But these puzzles just keep on coming with no one in sight. And near the end, those rounds start to feel like a blur. And before I know it, there really is a lot to take on. Even on the hunt site side with that tech issues at the beginning. But wait, I think there's more to the story than what low viewership might imply. The MIT Mystery Hunt is filled with so many cool ideas and stories that we don't often see elsewhere, to the point I spend incredible time to share my stories and more in that production value. When the stories I care about lose outside spotlight, I face crises and go all out to make up for it, much like what Persephone felt when Pluto got demoted as a planet. Still, big productions take a lot despite my sheer willpower, to the point that teams aim for second but not first just to not bear the pressure of writing next year's hunt. But Mystery Hunt also has a teamwork and connection with puzzling friends. Much of my high specifically came from being able to meet and do cool things with the teammates I met, and many see Hunt as a social experience without the pressures of finishing first or having it all seen. So while some find value in Mystery Hunt for the spotlight of niche ideas, others focus more on the team bonding and don't want their experience overwhelmed by larger showings. And if that's what's at stake, should I always go further beyond and over-the-top productions? I mean, I love telling stories and seeing the wider world get to know them, but this does call into question on whether I need to represent them to provide validation in the first place. But I definitely know that these puzzle stories still made a special impact even before and possibly without the wider world seeing them. Especially with the puzzle hunting friends that I finally got to meet. So to wrap this up, I really want to give a shout out to my teammates for the newfound community I saw in person, as well as the team formerly known as, 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 the team to be named later for this legendary hunt. Woo! And for viewers like you, thank you!